Wrong section, sweetheart. Economy's in the back. The man's voice cut through the quiet cabin like a blade. Madison looked up, 13, a black hoodie, calm eyes masking surprise. "Sir, this is my seat," she said, steady but trembling inside. The challenge in her tone sharpened his. His hand ripped the ticket, the other pressed heavy on her shoulder. "You kids always think rules don't apply to you?" Whispers rose. Pity. Laughter. Judgment. Madison's fingers tightened around her phone. Recording started. Her heartbeat matched the engines outside. Then his hand came down, sharp, deliberate. The sound tore through the silence. No one said a word, and in that moment Madison knew this flight would change everything. He called her sweetheart and told her she didn't belong. She stayed silent, hit record, and waited. What he didn't know was that the girl he slapped owned the airline. One flight, one mistake, one reckoning for everyone watching. 20 minutes earlier, Madison had boarded alone. No entourage, no first-class fanfare. Just a girl in a black hoodie with a backpack slung over one shoulder, moving through the jetway like any other passenger. She'd learned early that blending in revealed more truth than announcing yourself ever could. The gate agent had glanced at her boarding pass, then at her face, then back at the pass. A pause, a flicker of doubt. But the system confirmed it, so he waved her through without a word. Inside the aircraft, flight attendant Brenda Thompson stood at the galley, arranging champagne flutes on a tray. She looked up as Madison entered first class, and her smile faltered. Not disappeared, just tightened at the edges the way a door closes when you're not quite welcome. "Honey," Brenda said, voice sugary but firm, "are you sure you're in the right section? The main cabin's further back." Madison pulled her boarding pass from her pocket and held it up. "Seat 2A, first class." Brenda's eyes narrowed as she scanned the pass, then tapped something into her tablet. The screen confirmed it. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Okay then." No apology. No "welcome aboard." Just a curt nod and a turn back to her champagne. Madison slid into her seat, the leather cool against her arms. Across the aisle, a white businessman in his 50s glanced over, eyebrows raised. Behind her, a woman leaned toward her companion and whispered, not quietly enough, "Wonder how much her parents paid to get her up here?" Madison heard it. All of it. She always did. She unzipped her backpack and pulled out her laptop, opening a file marked Liberty Air, Internal Audit Q3. Rows of numbers filled the screen. Revenue streams, operational costs, staff turnover rates in customer service. She'd been studying these reports for months, ever since her father's funeral. Ever since the lawyer sat her down and explained what 68% ownership actually meant. James Carter had built Liberty Air from nothing. A single regional route in 1997. 28 years later, it was one of the top 5 domestic carriers in the country. And now it was hers, at 13. She didn't feel like an owner. She felt like a girl trying not to cry on an airplane. But this trip wasn't about grief. It was about a test. Her father used to say, "If you want to know how a company really works, don't sit in the boardroom. Sit and coach, sit in first class, watch how they treat people when they think no one's watching." So she'd booked this flight under her own name. No assistant, no advance notice to the crew. Just Madison Carter, passenger. She wanted to see what Liberty Air looked like when the owner was invisible. Now, 20 minutes later, she had her answer. Brenda returned, placing a glass of orange juice on the tray table of the businessman across the aisle. Then champagne for the couple behind Madison. She moved past Madison without a word, as if the girl in 2A didn't exist. Madison took a slow breath, opened her notes app, typed Flight 447, Brenda Thompson, ignored service, questioned presence. Her father's voice again, "Document everything, baby. Facts are power." She didn't know it yet, but she was about to need every bit of that power. Captain Collins returned 3 minutes later. This time, the politeness was gone. "I already told you," he said, standing over Madison's seat, arms crossed. "You need to move. Now." Madison looked up from her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Sir, I booked this seat 2 weeks ago. I have a confirmed ticket. I'm not doing anything wrong." "This is a security issue," Collins snapped. "Mrs. Harrington is a priority passenger. You're going to stand up, take your things, and go to the seat we assign you in the back." "A security issue?" Madison's voice stayed calm, but her hands were shaking now. "What security issue? I went through TSA. I have my boarding pass. What exactly am I being accused of?" Collins leaned in, his voice dropping to a growl. "Don't get smart with me, little girl. I'm the captain of this aircraft. What I say goes. You can move on your own, or I can call airport security to remove you. Your choice." Brenda appeared at his shoulder, arms folded, nodding along like a backup singer. "Sweetie," she said, voice dripping with false kindness, "just listen. It'll be easier for everyone if you cooperate." Madison felt the eyes of the cabin on her. The businessman across the aisle had his phone out now, half hidden, recording. A woman 2 rows back craned her neck to see. Another passenger muttered something to his seatmate. She could feel it. The judgment, the assumption, the silent consensus forming around her. Difficult, entitled, doesn't belong. Madison closed her laptop slowly, opened the Notes app on her iPhone, typed with deliberate precision, 10:47 a.m., Captain Richard Collins. Threatened removal. No cause given. Brenda Thompson present. Collins saw the phone. His face darkened. "What do you think you're doing?" "Taking notes," Madison said quietly. "Taking notes?" He barked out a laugh. "You're filming me, aren't you? Hand over that phone right now." "I'm not filming, I'm writing." "I said hand it over." A man in a gray suit 3 rows back stood up. "Captain, maybe we should just—" "Sit down," Collins snapped without looking at him. His eyes stayed locked on Madison. "This doesn't concern you." The man sat. Madison's thumb hovered over her contacts. She found the name she needed. Marcus Bennett, CEO, the man her father had mentored through business school, the man who owed James Carter everything. She didn't press call. Not yet. Collins stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. "You've got 5 seconds. Stand up or I'm having you dragged off this plane." Madison looked up at him. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. But her voice, when it came, was steady. "I'm not moving," she said, "and if you put your hands on me again, I'll make sure the whole world knows about it." For a moment, Collins just stared at her. Then he smiled, a cold, ugly smile. "You just made a big mistake, kid." He turned to Brenda. "Call ground control. Tell them we have a disruptive passenger who needs to be removed before departure." Brenda pulled out her phone, already dialing. Madison pressed her thumb to the screen. The call connected. 1 ring, 2. "Uncle Marcus," she whispered. "I need you, right now." Collins snatched the phone from Madison's hand before she could finish the sentence. "Who are you calling? Your mommy?" Madison stood up, instinct overriding fear. "Give that back. You have no right." "No right?" Collins laughed, harsh and loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "I have every right. This is my aircraft. You're a kid throwing a tantrum because you got caught sneaking into first class." "I didn't sneak." "Sure you didn't." He held the phone up, examining it like evidence. "Let me guess. Daddy's credit card? Or did you find some nice white family to buy you a ticket so you could play dress-up?" The words hit like a slap. Madison's breath caught. She felt heat rising in her chest, burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let it show. "That's racist," she said quietly. Collins snorted. "That's reality, sweetheart. Kids like you don't belong in first class unless someone's paying your way, and whoever that someone is, they're about to get a call from Liberty Air about your behavior." Mrs. Harrington stepped forward, her voice shrill and delighted. "I told you, Richard. These people always think they're owed something." Her parents probably bribed someone at the ticket counter. Madison's hands curled into fists at her sides. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to grab her phone back and shove the truth in their faces. But she could still hear her father's voice, steady and low. Don't react, baby. Document, observe, let them show you who they are. So she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She stood there, shoulders back, and looked Captain Richard Collins dead in the eye. I'd like to speak to your supervisor, she said. Collins grinned. My supervisor? He gestured around the cabin like a showman. Lady and gentlemen, the child would like to speak to my supervisor. You know what? Fine. Let's call the CEO. I'm sure Marcus Bennett would love to hear about the disruptive passenger who's holding up a full flight. He pulled out his own phone, still holding Madison's in his other hand. Brenda hovered behind him, arms crossed, her expression smug. You think the CEO cares about you? Collins said, voice mocking. You think anyone at Liberty Air is going to take the word of some kid over a 25-year veteran pilot? Sweetheart, I've been flying since before you were born. Madison said nothing. She didn't need to. She just opened her iPad, the backup she always carried, and began typing. Everything, timestamps, names, exact quotes. Collins saw her typing and his smile faded. What are you doing now? Filing a report, Madison said softly. A report? He barked out another laugh. To who? The principal's office? To the board of directors. That made him pause, just for a second. Then he shook his head, grinning again. The board. Right. Okay, kid. You do that. I'm sure they'll get right on it. He turned to the cabin, playing to his audience now. Folks, I apologize for the delay. We've got a situation here, but we'll have it resolved shortly. Some people just don't understand how things work. A few passengers chuckled. One man shook his head in sympathy. For Collins, not for Madison. But near the back of first class, a black woman in her 40s had her phone out. She wasn't laughing. She was recording. And when Madison's eyes met hers, the woman gave a single, small nod. Madison's fingers moved across the iPad screen. She pulled up her contacts. Found Marcus Bennett's private email, the one only 5 people in the world had. She attached the video file from her phone's cloud backup. Wrote 2 sentences. Uncle Marcus, Flight 447, I need you now. She hit send. Collins was still talking, still performing for the cabin. You know what the problem is these days? No discipline, no respect. Parents let their kids run wild, and then we're the ones who have to deal with it. Mrs. Harrington nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. When I was her age, I would never have dared. Madison's iPad buzzed. A reply. 3 words. On the phone now. She looked up at Collins. He was still holding her iPhone, still smiling that ugly smile. Captain, she said, voice calm. In about 90 seconds, you're going to get a call. I'd suggest you answer it. He laughed. From who? Your imaginary lawyer? From Marcus Bennett. Collins froze. The smile didn't leave his face, but something shifted behind his eyes. Uncertainty. Just a flicker. You don't know Marcus Bennett, he said. Madison tilted her head. Don't I? His phone rang. The caller ID flashed across the screen. Bennett, M. CEO. The cabin went silent. Every eye turned toward Collins. His hand, still holding the phone, began to shake. He stared at the screen, then at Madison, then back at the screen. Answer it, Madison said softly. He doesn't like to be kept waiting. Collins pressed the button, lifted the phone to his ear. This is Captain Collins. The voice on the other end was loud enough for the passengers nearby to hear. Clipped, cold, furious. Captain, this is Marcus Bennett. Do not say another word. Do not touch that girl again. Do not move. I will deal with you in exactly 3 minutes. The line went dead. Collins stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, face draining of color. Madison reached out her hand. My phone, please. He gave it back without a word. Collins stood frozen, phone still in his hand, staring at Madison like she'd just materialized out of thin air. The confident swagger from 30 seconds ago had evaporated. His jaw worked, but no sound came out. Madison slipped her phone into her hoodie pocket and sat back down in 2A. She didn't gloat, didn't smile, just opened her laptop again as if nothing had happened. But Collins wasn't finished. Not yet. "Wait," he said, voice tight. "Wait a minute. Who are you?" Madison didn't look up. "A passenger. Bullshit." He stepped closer, leaning over her seat. "Marcus Bennett doesn't take calls from random kids. You're lying. You faked that somehow." "Captain Collins." Jake, a flight attendant Madison hadn't noticed before, appeared from the galley. He was younger than Brenda, maybe late 20s, with cautious eyes. "Maybe we should—" "Stay out of this, Jake," Collins snapped. But Jake didn't move. He looked at Madison, then back at Collins. "Sir, if the CEO just called, maybe we should wait for—" "I said stay out of it." Collins turned back to Madison, his voice dropping to a hiss. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I've been flying for 25 years. I know people. I have connections. You think one phone call is going to scare me?" Madison finally looked up. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "I don't want to scare you, Captain. I just want to sit in the seat I paid for." "You didn't pay for anything," he shot back. "Someone paid for you. And when I find out who, they're going to hear about how their little charity case disrupted an entire flight." Brenda, still hovering near the galley, nodded vigorously. "Exactly. This whole thing is ridiculous. She's been nothing but trouble since she boarded." Jake opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Madison, something like apology in his eyes, but he said nothing. The passengers were no longer pretending not to watch. Phones were out now. A woman in 3C had her camera angled toward the confrontation. The businessman across the aisle was live tweeting. Madison could see the edges of his screen. Crazy scene on Liberty Air. Kid refusing to give up first-class seat. Captain losing it. A man in his 60s seated in 4A stood up. "Excuse me, Captain. I don't mean to interfere, but I think the young lady has been perfectly polite. Maybe we should all just calm down and—" "Sir, sit down," Collins said, not even looking at him. "I'm just saying, sit down." The man sat. Mrs. Harrington, emboldened by Collins's authority, stepped fully into the aisle now. "This is absurd. I was supposed to be in that seat 20 minutes ago. I have a connection in San Francisco. I have a meeting. This child is wasting everyone's time." "Ma'am," Jake said quietly, "there are open seats in first class. We can—" "I don't want an open seat. I want that seat. It's mine." "It's actually not," Madison said, still calm. "It's mine. You can check the manifest." Mrs. Harrington's face flushed red. "Don't you talk to me like that. You don't get to talk to me." "Why not?" Madison asked. The question hung in the air. No one answered, but everyone knew. A black woman near the back of first class, the one who'd been recording earlier, stood up. "I've seen enough," she said, voice clear and firm. "This girl bought a ticket. She's sitting in her seat, and y'all are treating her like a criminal. I'm recording all of this, by the way, just so we're clear." "Ma'am, please sit down," Brenda said, her voice sharp now. "I'll sit down when you stop harassing a child." A white man in 5B scoffed. "She's not being harassed. She's being difficult. If the captain says move, you move. That's how it works." "That's not how it works," the black woman shot back. "That's how racism works." The word dropped like a bomb. The cabin erupted. "Oh, here we go," someone muttered. "Everything's about race now," another voice added. "Maybe if she acted with some respect." "Respect?" The black woman's voice cut through the noise. "She's 13 years old, sitting quietly in a seat she paid for, and this man put his hands on her. Where's the respect in that?" Collins whirled toward her. "I did not." "I saw it," the woman said. "Everyone saw it." "This is ridiculous," Mrs. Harrington snapped. She's playing the victim because she knows she's wrong." Madison said nothing. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, watching it all unfold. Her father had taught her this too. Let them show themselves, baby. The truth doesn't need you to shout. Collins's phone rang again. He glanced at the screen, hesitated, then answered. "Yes?" His face went white. "Yes, sir. I understand. But there's been a... Yes. Yes, she's still here. No, I didn't..." He paused, listening. His eyes flicked to Madison. "You want me to... what?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't think..." He stopped, swallowed hard. "Understood." He lowered the phone, looked at Madison. His voice, when he spoke, was strained. "Mr. Bennett would like to speak to you." Madison held out her hand. Collins placed the phone in her palm like it was made of glass. She lifted it to her ear. "Hi, Uncle Marcus." The cabin went dead silent. "I'm okay," Madison said softly. "Just tired." She paused, listening. "No, I don't want him arrested. I just want to get to San Francisco." Another pause. "Okay, yes, I'll tell him." She handed the phone back to Collins. "He wants to talk to you again," she said. Collins took the phone with a shaking hand, pressed it to his ear. Whatever Marcus Bennett said next, it took less than 10 seconds. But when Collins lowered the phone, he looked like a man who'd just watched his entire life collapse. Brenda stepped forward, voice uncertain now. "Captain, what did he say?" Collins didn't answer. He just stared at Madison. Mrs. Harrington crossed her arms. "This is insane! Someone tell me what's going on!" Jake, standing near the galley, pulled out his own phone, opened the Liberty Air employee portal, typed something. His eyes went wide. "Oh my God," he whispered. Brenda grabbed his arm. "What?" Jake turned his phone toward her. She looked at the screen. Her face went gray. "That's not possible," she breathed. Brenda took a step back, then another, as if distance could undo the last 30 minutes. Madison closed her laptop, stood up, looked at Collins. "Captain," she said, voice steady, "I'm going to need you to step aside. I'd like to finish boarding so we can depart on time." Collins didn't move. He just stood there, staring. Jake stepped forward, his voice soft. "Miss Carter, I'm so sorry. We didn't know." "You shouldn't have needed to know," Madison said. "But thank you, Jake." She looked past Collins, toward the passengers. Phones were still out, but now they were pointed at her with a different kind of attention. The black woman in the back had tears in her eyes. Madison took a breath. "Can someone please let Mrs. Harrington know there's an open seat in 4C?" she said. "I'm sure she'd like to get settled before takeoff." No one moved. Then slowly Jake nodded. "Of course, Miss Carter, right away." Collins finally found his voice. It came out as a rasp. I didn't know." Madison looked at him. Really looked at him. "You knew I was a person," she said quietly. "That should have been enough." For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. The cabin felt suspended, like the moment before a lightning strike. Every eye was on Madison Carter, this 13-year-old girl in a hoodie who had just been revealed as the person who signed their paychecks. Collins's mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're James Carter's daughter." "I am." "But you're..." He trailed off, the sentence dying before he could finish it. "A child?" Madison offered. "Black? A girl?" She tilted her head. "Which part made you think I didn't deserve a seat I paid for?" Collins had no answer. The arrogance, the authority, the entire persona he'd built over 25 years, it crumbled in real time. His shoulders sagged, his hands hung uselessly at his sides. Mrs. Harrington, standing behind him, looked like she'd been flash-frozen. Her designer bag slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. "This can't be real," she whispered. This is some kind of mistake." "It's not a mistake," Jake said, still holding up his phone. "It's in the system. She's been the primary shareholder since February." "Since my father died," Madison added quietly. "February 14th. The black woman in the back pressed a hand to her mouth. A few passengers lowered their phones. The businessman across the aisle, who'd been filming the whole time, looked at his screen and then at Madison, something like shame crossing his face. Brenda stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Miss Carter, we didn't... If we'd known..." "If you'd known, you would have treated me like a human being." Madison's voice was soft, but it carried weight. "That's the problem, isn't it? You only show respect when you know someone's powerful. What about everyone else?" Brenda's face crumpled. She took a step back, then another, until she was pressed against the galley wall. Collins finally spoke, his voice hoarse. I need to apologize." "Do you?" Madison asked. "I do. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know who you were." "You still don't," Madison said. "You know what I own. That's not the same thing." She turned toward the cabin, addressing everyone now. "My father built this airline because he believed flying should be for everyone. Not just people who look a certain way or talk a certain way. Everyone. He used to say, 'If the sky belongs to everyone, so does the plane.'" Her voice wavered on the word father, but she kept going. "He also said that if you want to know how a company really treats people, watch what happens when no one knows you're watching. So I didn't tell anyone I was flying today. I wanted to see Liberty Air the way a regular passenger sees it." She looked at Collins, then at Brenda. "Now I know." The silence was suffocating. Then Jake stepped forward, his voice steady. "Miss Carter, on behalf of the crew, on behalf of everyone here who failed you today, I'm sorry. You deserved better. From all of us." Madison nodded. "Thank you, Jake. You tried to help. I saw that." A tear slipped down Jake's cheek. He wiped it away quickly. The black woman in the back stood up. She walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately, until she was standing in front of Madison. "Baby," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "I don't know you, but I'm proud of you. Your daddy would be proud of you." Madison's composure cracked, just for a second. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears back. "Thank you," she whispered. The woman pulled her into a hug. Madison let herself be held, just for a moment. When they separated, the woman looked at Collins and Brenda with an expression that could have stripped paint. "Y'all should be ashamed." She returned to her seat. The cabin remained silent. Collins sank into a crouch, his hands covering his face. "I've ruined everything," he muttered. "Oh, God, I've ruined everything." Mrs. Harrington, finally finding her voice, tried a different tactic. "Miss Carter, I didn't mean any disrespect. I was just frustrated. The airline told me I'd have 2A. I was just going by what they said." "No one told you that," Madison said calmly. "You assumed. Just like you assumed I didn't belong here." Mrs. Harrington's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Madison's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A text from Marcus Bennett. "Are you okay? Do you want them removed from the flight?" She typed back, "I'm fine. Let them stay, but we need to talk later." Another buzz. "Already scheduling an emergency board meeting. This ends today." Madison pocketed her phone and looked around the cabin one last time. At the passengers who'd filmed her humiliation. At the crew who'd stood by and watched. At Collins, still crouched on the floor, a broken man. "We're going to make some changes," she said. "Starting today, every employee at Liberty Air is going to go through implicit bias training. We're creating an Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and we're launching a $10 million scholarship fund for young people of color who want to work in aviation." She paused, letting the words settle. "My father believed in second chances. So, Captain Collins, you'll have a hearing. But if you ever lay hands on another passenger, any passenger, You won't fly again. Not for this airline, not for anyone. Collins looked up at her, his face streaked with tears. I understand. Madison turned to Jake. Can you help me get settled? I'd like to finish my work before we take off. Of course, Miss Carter. Jake's voice was full of quiet respect. He gestured toward her seat. Madison sat back down in 2A, opened her laptop. The screen glowed with spreadsheets and operational reports, the same work she'd been doing before all of this started. Around her, the cabin slowly came back to life. Passengers whispered to each other. Phones were lowered. Brenda retreated to the galley, moving like a ghost. Collins stood, unsteady, and walked toward the cockpit. He paused at the door, looked back at Madison one last time, then disappeared inside. The black woman in the back caught Madison's eye and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Madison nodded. Jake brought her a bottle of water. Anything else, Miss Carter? Just Madison is fine, she said. And no. Thank you, Jake. He smiled, small, sad, but genuine. We'll do better, I promise. I know you will, Madison said, because I'm going to make sure of it. As the cabin doors closed and the engines began to hum, Madison stared out the window at the tarmac. The ground crew moved with practiced efficiency, unaware of what had just happened 30 feet above them. Her father's voice echoed in her mind one more time. Dignity isn't given, baby. It's claimed. She'd claimed hers today, and in doing so, she'd started something that would ripple far beyond this single flight. The plane began to taxi. Madison took a breath, and for the first time in 8 months, she felt like her father was still sitting right beside her. 48 hours later, Captain Richard Collins sat in a conference room at Liberty Air's headquarters in Chicago, staring at a termination letter. His hands shook as he read the words for the 3rd time. Effective immediately, gross misconduct, physical contact with a minor, discriminatory behavior, violation of passenger rights protocols. The video had gone viral within 6 hours of landing, 12 million views, trending on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. News outlets had picked it up by the evening. Pilot assaults black teen, unaware she owns the airline. The headlines wrote themselves. By morning, the Federal Aviation Administration had opened an investigation. By noon, they'd suspended his license pending a full review. By the end of the day, the suspension became permanent. 25 years of flying, gone. His career, his reputation, his identity, erased in a single phone call. Collins' lawyer had advised him not to speak publicly, but the silence didn't matter. The evidence spoke for itself. The video showed everything. His hands on Madison's shoulder, the slap, the words. Kids like you don't belong in first class. He'd become a symbol, a cautionary tale, the face of everything wrong with the industry. Brenda Thompson fared no better. Her termination came within 24 hours, accompanied by a public statement from Liberty Air. We have zero tolerance for discriminatory behavior. Ms. Thompson's actions do not reflect the values of this company or the legacy of James Carter. Her personnel file was updated with a permanent notation. Terminated for cause, racial bias and failure to protect passenger welfare. No airline would hire her again. The aviation industry was small. Word traveled fast. Mrs. Linda Harrington received a certified letter at her home in Connecticut. The message was brief. You are permanently banned from flying with Liberty Air or any of its partner carriers. This decision is final and non-negotiable. She'd tried to argue, called customer service, demanded to speak to a manager, threatened legal action. None of it mattered. The decision came from the top, from Madison herself. Marcus Bennett held a press conference on the steps of Liberty Air's headquarters. Cameras flashed as he read from a prepared statement, his voice steady but tight with emotion. On behalf of Liberty Air, I want to publicly apologize to Madison Carter. She is not only our majority shareholder, but more importantly, she is a child who deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. We failed her. I failed her. He paused, looking directly into the cameras. James Carter built this airline on the principle that everyone deserves safe, respectful travel. We lost sight of that principle. It took a 13-year-old girl to remind us. He outlined the changes. Mandatory implicit bias training for all employees. A new Office of Diversity and Inclusion, fully funded and empowered to investigate complaints. A $10 million scholarship fund for students of color pursuing careers in aviation. And an independent review of company policies to root out systemic discrimination. This is not performative, Bennett said. This is a complete overhaul, and Madison Carter will be overseeing every step. The press conference ended with a photo. Marcus Bennett standing beside Madison, her small hand in his. She wore a blazer this time, not a hoodie. Her expression was calm, serious, unshakable. The photo went as viral as the video. Within a week, 3 other major airlines announced similar reforms. The incident had sparked a reckoning across the industry. Flight attendants and pilots came forward with their own stories of discrimination they'd witnessed or perpetrated. Passengers shared experiences of being profiled, harassed, removed from flights without cause. Madison became the face of a movement she hadn't asked to lead, but she didn't shy away from it. In an interview with a major news network, the anchor asked her what she wanted people to take away from all of this. Madison thought for a moment, then said, "I want people to understand that respect isn't something you earn by being powerful. It's something everyone deserves just for being human. My dad taught me that, and I'm going to make sure Liberty Air never forgets it." The interview ended with the anchor asking if she'd ever fly first class again. Madison smiled. "Every chance I get, it's my seat." 2 weeks after the incident, Madison stood on a small stage in Liberty Air's largest conference hall. 500 employees filled the room. The air hummed with nervous energy. She wore the same blazer from the press conference, but underneath was a T-shirt with her father's favorite quote, "The sky has no borders." The room fell silent as she approached the microphone. "I didn't want this," she began, voice steady but soft. "I didn't want to be on the news. I didn't want to go viral. I just wanted to sit in a seat I paid for and get to San Francisco." A few people nodded. Some looked down at their hands. "But what happened on Flight 447 wasn't really about me. It was about who we decide deserves respect, who we decide belongs, and who we decide doesn't." She glanced at Jake, standing near the back. He gave her a small nod. "My father used to say that if you want to know someone's character, watch how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Captain Collins didn't think I was important. Neither did Brenda. Neither did Mrs. Harrington. They saw a black kid in a hoodie and decided I didn't belong." She let the words settle. "But even if I wasn't the owner, even if I was just a regular passenger, I still would have deserved respect. So would every other person who walks onto one of our planes. That's what my father built this company on. That's what we forgot." Madison looked around the room. "I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to make sure this never happens again. To anyone. We're going to do the work. We're going to train. We're going to listen. We're going to change." Her voice grew stronger. "And if you're not willing to treat every passenger with dignity, regardless of their age, race, clothes, or attitude, then Liberty Air isn't the place for you anymore." Someone in the third row started clapping. Then others joined. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet. Madison felt tears prick her eyes, but she smiled through them. "I hope I'm making you proud, Daddy." When the applause died down, she said one last thing. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you to everyone, especially Jake, who tried to do the right thing even when it was uncomfortable. That's the kind of courage we need." She stepped back. Marcus Bennett walked onto the stage and pulled her into a hug. The room erupted again. As Madison left the stage, a young Latina flight attendant stopped her in the wings. "Thank you," the woman whispered, tears streaming. "Thank you for saying what so many of us needed to hear." Madison squeezed her hand. "We're going to do better. I promise." and she meant it. 3 months later, Madison appeared in a short video that Liberty Air posted across all its social media platforms. She sat in seat 2A, the same seat where everything had started, but this time the cabin was empty except for her and the camera crew. She looked directly into the lens. If you're watching this, maybe you saw the video from Flight 447. Maybe you were on that flight. Maybe you've been in a situation like mine where someone decided you didn't belong before they even knew your name. She paused, letting the words land. Here's what I want you to remember. Respect isn't something you earn by being powerful or rich or famous. It's something every single person deserves just for being human. My father taught me that, and it's a lesson I'll never forget. Madison leaned forward slightly, her voice growing more direct. So the next time you're on a plane, or in a restaurant, or anywhere else, and you see someone being treated unfairly, ask yourself, what kind of person am I going to be? Am I going to stay silent? Am I going to be Captain Collins, who saw a kid and decided she didn't matter? Or am I going to be like Jake, who stood up even when it was uncomfortable? She smiled, small, knowing, just a little playful. And hey, the next time you fly with us, take a look around. That person sitting next to you in the hoodie, that teenager with the backpack, they might be the one who signs the paychecks, but more importantly, they're a person. And that's all the reason you need to treat them right. Madison reached for the camera and pressed stop herself. The screen faded to black, and text appeared. Respect isn't earned by status. It's owed to every soul. Madison Carter, majority owner, Liberty Air. The video went viral within hours. Comments poured in by the thousands. This girl is changing the whole industry. Her father would be so proud. I'm booking my next flight with Liberty Air just because of her. We need more leaders like Madison Carter. But the comment that meant the most came from Jake, the flight attendant who'd tried to help that day. He posted a photo of himself in uniform with the caption, "Proud to work for an airline where doing the right thing actually matters. Thank you, Madison, for showing us what leadership looks like." Madison saw it and replied with 2 words. "Thank you, Jake." She closed her laptop and looked out the window of her office, the same office her father had worked in for 28 years. His photo sat on the desk beside her. In it, he was smiling, arms crossed, standing in front of the very first Liberty airplane. Madison picked up the frame and traced her finger along the edge. "We did it, Daddy," she whispered. "We're making things better." The sky outside was clear and endless, full of possibility, full of people who deserved to fly.